Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. Today, we're going to talk rants and meltdowns. I am your co-host, Tim Hannon, and with me is my good friend.
I'm Steve Wirt, and I'm just really ticked off because why are we not doing the podcast all about me? Oh, okay. That was my best rant.
I think all of us have been there, right? We've all been there where we've had our moments and maybe, melted down or went on a rant and kind of felt pretty dumb about it later. Sometimes it might be in front of a spouse or family member. Sometimes it might be in front of a group of people. I don't think, Steve, either of us have had the experience of that happening in front of a stadium full of 60,000 people or a television audience of millions. So we are fortunate there.
Not yet, but it's still early. So
I think the closest thing I ever came to that was I was at a grocery store in one of those self-checkout lanes, and I couldn't get the thing to like scan my fruit or whatever. And I rang the little bell for help and nobody was coming to help. And I just started like throwing my arms up in the air and like saying very loudly how ridiculous this was and really just making a fool out of myself. But that was only, 10 or 11 people, not millions. So hopefully I will not get to that point.
Tim, you know what you are?
What am I?
You're a Karen.
I was definitely a Karen that day.
No, I had a little mini meltdown. Like I came home after a long day at work, and like there was just like I forget there was like a bunch of family over, and it was like I don't know. They were like I don't know. It just like sometimes I get like a little too particular about the way I like things in my house. And it's just like so it's like I just needed to go upstairs and take a deep breath and relax after. Yeah. Bring a little bit of work home with you is never a good thing. So
I can empathize with that one. So just to say that as we go through these and relive some of the Pittsburgh sports rants and meltdowns, definitely no judgment here. We certainly understand that these things can happen, and certainly there's some of these guys I'm sure that would want these moments back. But that being said, let's relive those moments and let's kick it off with this.
And now McClendon walks back. He's going to pick up first base, and he's walking away with the first base bag. To the delight of this crowd, McClendon marches down the dugout steps with first base and now whips it toward the runway. We can't continue this game without a first base bag, and now a member of the grounds crew will take another bag and jog toward first base, put it back in there.
I like that some member of the grounds crew got booed. Like, boo, leave it empty.
That was definitely the best part of that clip was the poor grounds crew guy at PNC Park getting destroyed for doing his job.
Yeah.
So this is June 26, 2001. It's the inaugural season of PNC Park. The Pirates are playing the Milwaukee Brewers. Catcher Jason Kendall, he's called out on a very close play at first base. He disagrees with the call. He starts to argue. And as, happens very often in baseball, Pirates manager, who at the time is a guy named Lloyd McClendon, comes out to argue as well. Umpire Rick Reed tosses McClendon pretty quick. And I'm not sure if that's what sets off McClendon, just the fact that he got tossed like right off the bat. And that's really up to the umpire's discretion, right? Sometimes they let them argue and kick dirt and then they throw them out. Sometimes they throw them out right away. But regardless, McClendon digs out first base and just walks off the field with it and whips it into like the dugout, down the dugout steps. So pretty memorable reaction there, Steve, to a close call.
Yeah, I mean it's it's the Pirates, so it must have been early in the season because like if this was September, like who would have cared? It's like
yeah, it was June, and it was also that first season at PNC Park, so I think they probably had pretty good attendance despite I think they lost 100 games that year.
You could just say that about just say that about any season. You got to
Throw a dart.
You got an
1 in 3 chance.
80% chance. Yeah. For him getting it right. It's just, I mean, it's nice to see like some passion, but I feel bad that it's so misplaced because it's just, you weren't going anywhere that year. I mean, like who was not even on that team? Jason Kendall, Brian Giles.
Lloyd McClendon was the manager. That's about
was
all I remember.
Was Operation Shutdown, or he might not been there yet. So
yeah, I think he had already shut down, or maybe he shut down the next year.
Yeah.
Regardless, it was a bad team, and to his credit, McClendon does later admit to regretting doing that. He says, "quote I didn't realize I'd ripped the skin off of all my knuckles trying to get the damn thing out of the ground."
Nice.
So he actually, apparently first base is, they're pretty stuck in there, obviously, right? They don't want it coming up. So it was not easy to rip it out of the ground.
A little grounds crew there. Yeah, normally they have like a little hole and it sits in there, and I don't know.
Yeah, next time bring a shovel or something out, right? You can just pry it out, maybe
Bring a
crowbar.
tool with you, yeah.
Yeah. Bring.
I wonder, do you know what inning that was in? Because sometimes, like, if like it's been a long game and it's like the 7th or 8th inning, and you start arguing, like that's when you get the quick hook. Like if it's the 1st or 2nd inning, like it's like I think the umpires sometimes have more patience, But if it's later in the game and you've been kind of chirping at the umpire the whole game, they're not going to put up with too much there. So.
Yeah, I don't know what inning. I do know that Major League Baseball has always maintained that that's at the umpire's discretion. And I remember that from when Roger Clemens, when he was pitching for the Red Sox, got thrown out of I believe it was the 1st inning of a ALCS game against the A's. And that was a huge controversy. Like you can't throw out Roger Clemens in the 1st inning, but Major League Baseball said it's the discretion of the umpire. So
yeah, you almost have to leave it that way because you don't know what he said, or I don't even know the backstory. You don't know what, maybe something was being said before the game and the umpire but sometimes the umpires are just there to prove a point. But in the playoffs, come on, that's a little much. Regular season, okay, have at it, but that's a little much for the playoffs.
Well, at the very least, we got a memorable meltdown out of it. So, and Lloyd McClendon, not the only Pittsburgh coach to lose it every once in a while. Another guy that sometimes had some emotional reactions was a guy named Bill Cowher. In 1995, the Steelers are playing the Minnesota Vikings at Three Rivers Stadium.
I remember this.
And it's a close game. The Vikings are up 10-6 right before halftime, and they get into field goal range. Kicker Fuad Reveiz lines up for a long field goal.
The
for
immortal
Minnesota.
Fuad Reveiz.
Fun fact: Fuad Reveiz, one of only 2 Colombian-born NFL players.
Wow!
Yeah, there's your fun fact for the day.
He's got that going for him.
He does. What he doesn't have going for him is this long field goal attempt right before halftime. He misses the kick, so that's good for the Steelers. Keeps the game 10-6 going into halftime. But hang on, there's a flag on the play. And the penalty is too many men on the field against the Steelers. And what a dumb penalty, right? Pre-snap penalties are the worst. You can't have too many men on the field. You got to be able to line up correctly.
Can anybody count to 11?
Yep. And that's the problem because the Steelers actually did line up correctly. The replay shows that there are 11 guys on the field. And if you're doing the math, that is the allowable number of players by NFL rule. So the referees literally miscounted.
I think you can play with 4.
Guys.
I think you could play with 10 if you want.
You can play with 10. You just can't play with more than 11. But there were exactly 11. Unfortunately for the Steelers, there's no instant replay in 1995. And honestly, I'm not sure if that would even be a reviewable thing today. It's a pretty egregious error, and it's costly because Fuad Reveiz makes the kick with his second try. And now the Vikings are up a touchdown going into halftime.
He just needed that extra 5 yards.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, Bill Cowher is the coach of the Steelers this time. He's understandably livid, and he gets a printout of the picture or a printout of the pre-snap alignment showing that there's only 11 guys on the field. They used to have these little like black and white
Now it's on the
photos.
iPads. Yeah.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Right. But back then they would print out these little black and white photos. And he gets one of those. He runs up to the ref screaming, shoving it in his face. The ref's like, I don't know what you're trying to show me. If you're trying to show me some Polaroid or if you're family or something, but I don't really want to see it. So he tries to walk away and Cowher stuffs it in the ref's shirt pocket, which I didn't even know the refs had shirt pockets until that incident happened.
They can keep their pens and pencils in there.
Right. Yeah. Or black and white pictures of a call.
That helps them. That helps. Yeah, helps them not count to 11, I guess.
The Steelers do end up losing this game by a lot more than 3 points. The final score is 44-24. So that play really doesn't have a huge impact. But, pretty memorable moment. The refs totally botched it, and Cowher did not want them to forget about it.
I think he got fined for that a fair amount of money, I do believe.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, you figure like how many bad calls of like NFL officiating have there been since then? And I don't know what the issue is in the NFL, but always like maybe just because it's such a short season and every play is magnified. But it just seems like every year there's just, and some of it's the rules. I've said that too before. Some of it's just the rules, but this is just like, can you count to 11?
Yeah, I think pass interference or holding. I mean, that's like all the action is so quick. You can understand why that's not an easy job. But this is, like you said, Steve, literally counting the number of guys on the field.
I don't remember how they screwed that up. Even like I can't even remember like the line. Like I don't even know how you screw that up. Like normally you can tell, like just like, oh, that's a weird alignment. There's an extra safety out here or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if that would have been like the game-winning field goal or something? That would have been much more magnified. But as it was, like I said, it was a field goal that in the end really didn't impact the game a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you had the over, I don't know.
Yeah, I still think they probably would have covered it, winning 44-24.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were some Pittsburgh meltdowns. Let's talk about some opponent meltdowns. And for that, let's talk about our friends in Boston, because we like to pick on them. So in 1991, the Boston Bruins and Pittsburgh Penguins are meeting in the Wales Conference Finals. At stake is obviously a trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Bruins win the first 2 games of that series, and they're really physically overwhelming the Penguins. And in game 3, there's a play where Cam Neely, who at that point is Boston's best player, he's skating up the ice. Ulf Samuelsson of the Penguins, he's skating the opposite direction, and those two collide. Samuelsson's knee catches Neely's leg, and eventually Neely has to leave the game. The Bruins are just totally incensed. Head coach Mike Milbury literally picks up a stick on the bench and slams it repeatedly against the glass until it breaks in half. So the Bruins thought Ulf Samuelsson did this on purpose and ran his knee right into Neely's leg. The Penguins claim it was just an accident. You can believe whoever you want on that one. The Penguins do win the game, but the Penguins win game 3. The Bruins are still up in the series, and Neely's able to come back. So maybe like this would be a good time to just say, okay, we're upset about it. Let's move on. Or maybe let's even use it, for momentum. But instead, Mike Milbury dresses a bunch of goons for game 4. He literally just dresses 4 guys on his team who have a combined 7 goals on the season with the sole intention of exacting revenge on Ulf Samuelsson, and the Bruins lose again. So he literally, that's Mike Milbury's.
But did they exact revenge on Ulf Samuelsson?
I'm sure they hit him a few times, and that, I guess
that's the whole point of hockey. It's not the score at the end of the game. It's exacting revenge on Ulf Samuelsson. That'll win you a Stanley Cup.
And that's such a like thughead Canadian Mike Milbury mentality. So
I can see dressing one goon and then try and match him up. Like Samuelsson's a defenseman, so it'd probably be a little easier to, line him up a little bit here and there. But
no, he dresses guys that wouldn't have otherwise played just to try to push the Penguins around. So they basically waste a game. Neely, also obsessed with Ulf. In game 5, he's called for multiple penalties that turn into Penguin power play goals. and Pittsburgh wins that game. In game 6, Neely actually tries to check Alf Samuelson along the boards, but Alf ducks, and Neely's left thigh sustains most of the collision, which badly hurts him. In fact, he ends up missing most of the next season, all because he wanted to try to hit Alf Samuelson.
Well,
And
that was
that's-
definitely all Samuelson's fault there too.
And see, that's what everybody forgets. All everybody remembers, especially the Boston fans, is that Alf Samuelson took out Cam Neely and ruined his career. But the injury that caused Neely to miss most of the following season was his left thigh, which was not the leg that Samuelson ran into. Samuelson ran into his right leg. It was his left thigh that was the injury, and that he got hurt trying to check and get revenge on Alf Samuelson.
Right leg, left thigh. You know, come on, it's all the same, right, Tim? Alf Samuelson shouldn't even be there, existing, daring to get in the way of a plucky Boston team that just is such an underdog that never has any money, doesn't have all the money in the world, and have every call go for them. Yeah. Can you tell that? Yeah, I'm kind of tired of their act.
Yeah, well, and
That's
this
why I
was
don't-
such a
I
good
don't
example of that.
That's why I don't really respect the Boston teams. It's like I get sick of that mentality. Oh, we're just so a poor put upon team. Yeah, right. You guys have like 1 million championships between the Celtics, Patriots, and Bruins. Like, give it up. You know, it's like you're New York light. At least I respect New York. Like, New York it's like, yeah, we're New York. We won 1 million championships. We're going to win 1 million more, and you're going to hear about it. I can live with that. I just can't stand Boston for the whole, oh, we're so put upon. Go whine somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always they're always the victim. They're always downtrodden. And like you said, Steve, that mantra is so old. You can't do it anymore. But back then, you know, people ate that up, and people
because
believed
the
it.
Red Sox hadn't won in like
Right.
100 years.
That's
It's like,
exactly
okay,
right.
you've run 3 World Series now in the last couple of times, and you spent billions of dollars to do it. So yeah, go cry in somewhere else, you know. And how many championships have the Celtics won? I mean, my goodness. I mean, them and the Lakers, they have to be, you know, like 1 and 2 there. I mean, come on.
I'm with you.
I just don't get it. That's why I always like the rate. Like, say what you will about the Oakland, Vegas, LA, wherever they are this week, Raiders. They're just pure unadulterated evil, and they don't they don't pretend that, like, that's the whole the Patriots thing. Oh, no, you're evil. You just pretend not to be. That's why I totally respect the Raiders. You're cheating. You know you're gonna cheat. You know what they're gonna do. I know what you're up to. I can live with that.
I can't
And
disagree with a word of
and
this.
that's my rant, Tim.
Nice way to
on
bring
Boston, on Boston sports.
it home.
Take that, Bill Simmons.
So the Bruins lose the conference finals in '91. The Penguins go on to win the Stanley Cup. The two teams meet again the following year in the 1992 Wales Conference Finals. Neely out for that series because, again, you know, had to be all bloodthirsty. During Game 2 of that '92 series, Boston's Dave Pouliot is called for tripping. It results in a power play goal by Mario Lemieux. And after the game, Mike Milbury in '92, he is no longer the coach. He had moved up to the front office to become the assistant general manager, but he's still injecting himself into things. After the game, he follows referee Dennis Morel into the tunnel leading to the referee's locker room in the Civic Arena, and he unleashes this tirade.
Just go home. Another day at the office, Dennis. Another day at the office. That's all it is. Just another day at the office, Dennis. Just take your paycheck and go home. You phony.
Okay, well, that sounds like fair advice. That's what I do. I just collect my paycheck and go home.
Just another day at the office, Dennis. God, that guy's the worst. What
he was an
tool.
NBC commentator for years.
Yeah, he was terrible at that too. I mean,
My favorite Mike Milbury highlight was when he went into the stands at Madison Square Garden and beat the heck out of a fan with his own shoe. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, whatever. Boston loses again. Mike Milbury gets fined, and the Penguins win the Stanley Cup again. So, early '90s Bruins never won anything.
Yeah, well, it was just another day at the office, at least for the Penguins winning Stanley Cups.
So that was fun. Always fun reliving the misery of the Boston teams. Let's
Yeah,
go
I just
back
can't
to
stand Boston team. I'm sorry. I just maybe it's just the Patriots. I just can't. I don't know. Whatever.
it's a whole mentality, like you said. It's a whole fan mentality.
It's just like the Giants don't annoy. Like the Giants have won a lot. And the Yankees have won a ton. It just doesn't rub me the wrong way. It does like with Boston. I don't know why. It just
Well,
I don't know.
take some solace in that Mike Milbury is storming into
Yeah.
the referee tunnel, making a fool of himself. All right, speaking of making a fool of himself, let's talk about a gentleman named Jeff Reed. He was the Steelers place kicker for 9 seasons. He has 2 Super Bowl rings, was a pretty good kicker. Also a very eccentric fellow. Bleached his hair, remember, Steve? Sometimes wore like crazy outfits, things like that.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, not your typical like place kickers always look like they're, in 6th grade and their mom let them come out to play for the team for a while, right? And Jeff Reed was
Like even Chris Boswell looked like he's on like some sort of vegan diet or something. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Like mother said, I cannot eat any gluten today.
Well, Jeff Reed marched to the beat of a little beat. Yeah, Jeff Reed marched to the beat of a different drum for sure. One night in 2009, Reed is out pretty late. He's out around 3 a.m. and not sure what he's doing out that late, Steve. Probably, I don't know, volunteering at like an all-night homeless shelter, maybe.
I think he was just checking the Sheets bathroom, if I know where this for quality standards. He worked for Sheets in his part time. That's where I'm pretty sure.
Well, so yes, he does stop at a Sheets gas station to use the restroom, and he washes his hands, but no paper towels. I mean,
see, and when you're working quality assurance, he takes it really seriously, Jim.
Yeah, and hey, we've all been there before, right, Steve?
He's
your
got
hands
a
are
job
wet.
to do. He's got a job to do, and darn it, the paper towels are out.
What are you going to do? Wipe your hands on your pants? I mean, that's no good.
Yeah.
So Reed,
especially him, he wears fancy pants. So,
right? Yeah, you can't get those wet. So Reed instead trashes the paper towel dispenser. He's charged with criminal mischief for that little.
Charged for criminal mischief for that? That has to be more than just a paper towel dispenser.
Well, I mean, you're destroying property, I guess, at that point.
I mean, doesn't have to research. Well, I guess if it's under a certain dollar amount, it used to be a certain dollar amount that it would just be like vandalism or something. Like, wow.
Reed is not done though. In 2010, the Steelers are playing at home against. Here we go again with the Boston teams against the New England Patriots. And as has usually been the case for the past 2 decades, Tom Brady gets the better of the Steelers that evening. Reed does not have a good game. He actually misses a 26-yard field goal, which is, I mean, you can't get a whole lot closer than 26 yards. The game's not really even close. I mean, the Patriots just basically beat down the Steelers. And afterwards, all the Steelers players are taking accountability for the way they played. And we got to be better. We got to block better. We got to pass better. All that kind of stuff. Except for Jeff Reed. He's dressed in a Haters Hate t-shirt. And he criticizes the field, the turf at Heinz Field. He even goes after the fans. He says, quote, "They buy tickets just to bash me," which, I've never bought a ticket just to bash Jeff Reed, but, that the level of pettiness you'd have to spend good money on tickets and parking and food just to yell at the kicker, I guess.
It was a pretty good kicker too. Like, I don't remember anybody ever having that much hate for Jeff Reed. Sean Sweezum, sure. Who was the other guy that kicked for the Steelers for like 5 seconds?
Josh Scobie. That I remember people hated him. But yeah,
there was another guy I remember got kicked and he was like running with the ball. It looked like ridiculous. That was early on in Heinz Field. He did have a point about the field did suck back then at Heinz Field. I'll give him that point.
It did, but I mean,
but he was good on it. Like, I always thought that's what made him so good, is like that was an impossible place to kick. And like you said, missing a 26-yarder is bad, but in Heinz Field, that was in the open end with that turf. I kind of give them a little bit of a slack there. You're not going to make everyone down there.
Yeah, maybe after a bad loss to the Patriots is not a good time to bring up the condition of the field or how the fans are all jerks.
Well, the fan thing, I don't know what that, maybe just emotions boiling over, but yeah, definitely.
Well, that little rant marks the end of Jeff Reed's career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's cut the next day.
Really? I didn't
Yep.
know that. Wow. He
Yep.
never really kicked anywhere else much after that.
He
did
played for San Francisco for like 2 or 3 games, and then that was the end of his career.
Yeah, I never understood. Like, I thought even after they cut him, he'd have at least another, like, kickers last forever, but boy, it really went off the cliff quickly for him. I don't know. There had
It
to be
did.
some off the field stuff maybe or something.
Well, again, I think with the Steelers, there's a history of, we'll put up with so much until it gets to the point of either we're not going to put up with it anymore, or your performance doesn't warrant us putting it up with it anymore. And if he's missing 26-yard field goals, maybe that was the line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the Steelers did make the Super Bowl that year, and if I remember correctly, Sweesom, who was the guy that replaced Reed, he missed a pretty key kick in that Super Bowl. So
that was a Tomlin, huh? Was that Tom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was back when Mike Tomlin would cut players and not think about it too much. I bet the current Mike Tomlin wouldn't do that. If like Boswell did something like that, yeah, I could. Yeah.
Again,
Boswell
I think
kind of had his moments this year too, where he missed a couple kicks where you're kind of like,
I think the again, we talked about this in a previous episode. To me, it's always, even in the Cowher days, it usually came down to was the guy still performing or wasn't he? Like, remember Cedric Wilson, the wide receiver?
Yeah.
They cut him for a domestic violence incident, but James Harrison had the exact same thing happen the same offseason. They didn't cut him. So and that was in the Cowher days. So to me, it's they're never going to take a hard stance of like zero tolerance, period. It's going to depend on, and that's probably every team, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the ice for our next meltdown, and here it is.
But it didn't. Oh, Schoenfeld's gone. Jim Schoenfeld now, he's standing in front of the Penguin bench. Oh, he's taunting with Eddie Johnston right now. Look at this. This is as ugly an incident as I have seen in some time. Look at this. Oh, he's egging on the crowd a little bit more. And that's a mistake, too.
So in 1996, the Penguins and the Capitals are meeting in the playoffs, as they so often have over the years.
Well, and I can know how this turned out for the Capitals.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Usually when that happens, doesn't go well for Washington. But at the beginning of the series, things are different because the Capitals win Game 1 and Game 2 in Pittsburgh. So they have complete control of the series.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yep. And that was, the Penguins were heavy favorites. The Penguins had a really good year that year. So the Capitals are kind of on the cusp of taking out their big rivals. But the Penguins take Game 3, and then Game 4 goes into quadruple overtime. It's one of the longest games in NHL history, and it ends when Peter Nedved of the Penguins scores a goal to even the series. And so now the Capitals are kind of hosed. You don't lose a 7-hour hockey game and come back from that. So Game 5 goes just as you would expect. The Penguins are all over the Capitals. Washington can't get anything past Penguins goalie Kenny Reggett. The Penguins have a commanding lead in the final minutes of the game. So what do you do, Steve, if you're Capitals coach Jim Schoenfeld? What do you do? You're losing Game 5. You're going to lose the series
you
probably.
Go after like 100-year-old Eddie Johnston for no apparent reason.
Well, the first thing you do is you send Mark Tenorti out to go pick some fights. And if you don't remember Mark Tenorti, if I had to like rank my top 3 hockey, tool bags, I'd probably put like Tom Wilson, Scott Hartnell, and Mark Tenorti in the top 3. That guy was just a total.
No Trouba with the elbow.
Truba's working his way up there.
Okay, he's an honorable mention.
Yeah, he's an honorable mention. Yeah. So he sends Mark Tenorti out there, which is obviously just hey, the game's over. I'm just going to go try to hurt somebody. There's a big melee, and what Steve alluded to, Schoenfeld starts verbally getting into a fight with the Penguins bench. And he and Penguins assistant coach Brian Trottier are right in each other's faces. So Brian Trottier obviously had played for the Penguins. At this point, he's an assistant coach, but he's only a few years removed from being on the ice, so he gets pretty hot. Eddie Johnston's the head coach. He's kind of behind Trottier. Schoenfeld was a guy that has a very long history of coming unglued. Just Google Jim Schoenfeld and have another donut if you want to know why. But we'll just stick to this story. The refs come over and they actually toss Jim Schoenfeld from the game, which is not something, I don't know, Steve, have you ever seen that in hockey where the
Not
coach
in
gets thrown
hockey,
out?
no. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. I don't think
Yeah.
Milbury even got thrown out when he
Was
threw all
breaking the sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he just got like a bench minor or something, right? That's
Yeah.
normally what happens. You just get like a penalty.
Yeah, they actually throw Schoenfeld out of
And
the
wouldn't
game.
it be cool if they made like the coach sit in the penalty box? They should change that rule. Like the coach
I would
like
love
that.
to see that.
Like you see like Mike Sullivan sitting in the penalty box.
I like it.
I don't know
like
what
it.
you do when the penalty's over. Like they have to come out and try and play like in their like street shoes or something.
They have to make it back to the bench so that another player can come onto the ice.
You gotta like do like you ever see like when they walk on the ice or
Right,
like walk
right.
real slow, you know.
Right? They have to like scramble over there as fast as they can, like dive over the boards in their suit.
Yeah.
Anyway, the refs. Anyway, because of where the locker room is at the Civic Arena, Schoenfeld actually has to walk across the ice to the tunnel. And he does so just screaming at the Penguins bench the whole time. So imagine this scene, right? There's this big fight on the ice and there's this big fight on the bench. Now the refs are like escorting him across the ice. He's screaming back at the Penguins bench as he's getting escorted off. The fans, of course, this is at Civic Arena, so the fans are just screaming their heads off, booing this guy. And when Jim Schoenfeld gets to the tunnel, he stops. He just stops. He gazes up at the crowd, and then he makes like a come get some gesture with his hands, which is, I mean, to his credit, pretty ballsy. I mean, you're taking on Brian Trottier and 17,000 people. But that was Jim Schoenfeld. He was a bit of a sociopath.
Doing wonderful things with psychotherapy these days.
Mario
Little
Lemieux,
Xanax, a little something, Zacprexa, some little mood stabilizer. Take the edge off there for our friend.
Mario Lemieux, after the game, has this quote, "Those are the actions of a desperate hockey team," end quote.
Nice.
Penguins go on to win the series in 6 games. Not
After
surprising.
being down 2 games, it doesn't even go seven games.
Yep. That's Penguins Capitals in a nutshell for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our next rant. This one happened as the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium in a 2016 AFC divisional playoff game.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
And that game comes down to a 2-point conversion. The Chiefs score, it's 18-16. They need a 2-point conversion to send the game into overtime. And they actually converted. So now it looks like the game's going into overtime. But again, hold everything, flag on the play. Holding on Kansas City offensive lineman Eric Fisher. And the replay shows that it's, I think, totally the right call. Because Fisher basically clotheslines James Harrison, which happened a lot to James Harrison, and they usually didn't call it. But on this play, it allowed the team to buy more time to convert it, and the referees say it's too egregious. They call holding. The Chiefs are unable to convert on their second 2-point conversion. They lose the game. And afterwards, Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce goes on this rant.
At the end like that, with the ref literally taking it out of our hands, that hurts. That wasn't a hold on my guy Eric Fisher, and sure enough, I hope 7-2 doesn't go the entire offseason thinking it was his fault. That was horse. This sucks. Just get our jugulars ripped out because ref felt bad for James Harrison falling on the ground. It's ignorance. The ref number 51 shouldn't even be able to wear a zebra jersey ever again. He shouldn't even be able to work Foot Locker.
Travis Kelce does not agree with the call.
Okay, work at Foot Locker. Jeez.
I mean, I get
Can he
wanting
work
to,
at Sport Clips though? I think they wear uniforms there too.
I get wanting to stick up for your guy. I mean, if Kelsey, I don't know how he would have even seen that, being that he was, on the field and probably trying to get open in the end zone. And man, what a baby. I mean, Travis Kelsey is one of the greatest, maybe the greatest tight end of all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's the best. He's amazing.
It's
But
amazing
a
what you
baby.
can do when you don't have to block anybody.
But still, what a baby. I mean, like,
And you don't, and you can't get hit. And you can't get hit at all ever. Nobody can sneeze on you or your quarterback. I mean, yeah, sure, that makes it really easy to be a tight end. So there you go,
that.
Travis. Why don't you and Shannon Sharp switch time frames there for a minute, and we'll see who's the first ballot Hall of Famer and who's maybe not. Why don't you play some Steeler Baltimore games there? I bet you don't even make it out of the first half. Oops, did I call him soft? I don't know. Whatever.
Well,
he probably could beat me up. I mean, I'm like, not an athlete and old as dirt. So
hopefully he's not listening.
you
Kelsey,
are, Travis. You are a good player.
Kelsey is fined $12,000 by the NFL for criticizing the referees and saying that the guy couldn't even work at Foot Locker.
Travis Kelsey couldn't play in another era of football. So I don't know. I mean, just whatever. And Harrison did kind of refine the ability to fall down, but on that play, that was pretty egregious.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the refs letting them play, but at some point you just can't let teams blatantly cheat. So
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's talk about, let's go back to a Pittsburgh meltdown. 2015, the Pittsburgh Pirates have a magical season. They win 98 games.
Ooh,
But the
that's
problem
pretty
is,
magical.
well, for the Pirates, the problem is that they still finish behind the St. Louis Cardinals in the division, and they have to play the Cubs in a one-game wild card elimination. And that year, the Cubs have a pitcher named Jake Arrieta, and he is statistically having one of the best seasons in the history of baseball. He's starting that wild card game, and the Pirates have zero answers for Jake Arrieta. They're getting shut out. Their dream season is about to be over. Sean Rodriguez of the Pirates, though, he's not going to go down without a fight, but not on the field. Instead, he unleashes a barrage of punches on a Gatorade bucket in the dugout. And it's actually pretty hilarious. I mean, we've seen people knock over Gatorade buckets or even throw them, right? But Sean Rod spars with it like he's in a boxing match.
He beat the heck out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty impressive. It spawns all kinds of internet memes and Photoshop jobs. My favorite, Steve, was somebody dubbed the Mike Tyson punch out sound effects.
Yeah.
into that clip. So Sean Rodriguez, not a proud moment there as he punches the heck out of a Gatorade bucket.
What was shame was the Pirates had totally smoked Arrieta every other game that year except for that one. He was good that year, but he wasn't good against the Pirates, and it was they were kind of taking a chance. And then weird how Jake Arrieta hasn't been any good since then, has he? It's almost like he was taking something or doing something. Fascinating.
Well, I can tell you, all I know is that Sean Rodriguez was not was if he was taking something, then his fist might not have hurt as much when he punched that Gatorade bucket. So we talked a little bit before about some coaches losing it, Schoenfeld and Bill Cowher and guys like that. One thing in the NFL, Steve, that I really miss are the old school coaches and their rants. Remember Mike Ditka and Bill Parcells, and remember Jim Mora Sr., Sam Weiss. I mean,
when Mike Ditka if you got any answers, not very fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Or trashing Jim Harbaugh when Harbaugh was his quarterback, and Jim Mora with the playoff thing, and Parcells. I mean, any given week he would go off. Sam Weiss got a live microphone and yelled at this crowd the one time.
Yeah.
You had a bunch of coaches who would just lose their minds at any given moment. And you don't really see that anymore in the NFL. Coaches are mostly like safe and boring now, which in the age of 24/7 football coverage and Twitter and all that, like I can see why, coaches are more careful. And certainly one of the most safe and boring coaches in the NFL is a guy named Mike Tomlin. He always gives very measured, like to the point answers to questions in press conferences. He always praises the other team, sometimes to just like a ridiculous degree. I like the only interesting things that come out of Mike Tomlin press conferences are like the Tomlinisms. Every once in a while, though, Tomlin does go off brand. And in 2021, there are a bunch of rumors all of a sudden that Tomlin's going to leave the Steelers for a job at the University of Southern California. And these stories, they're really unfounded, but because we live in that aforementioned age of 24/7 football coverage, the media's got to, for lack of a better word, make stuff up. That's really what they do. You just find a source that says that might happen, and then you can just make it a story. And so Tomlin is asked about this at a press conference. And what would you expect in that case? You'd expect them to do the usual, like, oh, we're just focused on this week's game or whatever, right? Brush it off. Instead, Mike Tomlin says this.
Guys, I don't have time for that speculation. That's a joke to me. I got one of the best jobs in all of professional sport. Why would I have any interest in coaching college football? That'll be the last time that I address it. And not only today, but moving forward. Never say never, but never. Okay? Anybody else got any questions about any college jobs? There's not a booster with a big enough blank check.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you. Anybody asking Sean Payton about that? Anybody asking Andy Reid about stuff like that?
Yeah, and he then storms off the stage after that.
Yeah, he kind of went there. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I guess whatever.
Yeah,
it just said no.
Well, and like I said, that's a rare time that you see.
I don't know why
Tomlin
he was
react
so
emotionally.
annoyed by that. I guess he felt like it was hurting his team or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, something definitely was triggered there, where it really upset him. And it was an interesting comment he made there at the end about Sean Payton and Andy Reid.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a race related thing or just, who knows, but I get it. Again, there was zero anything to that story. Again, all you have to do, Steve, you and I could do it. Like we could just go on Twitter, like I have a source that says this, and that's it. You just make stuff up, right? Anybody can do that. And
I have a source that
will.
says Tim Hannon is the future owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's my source. Don't ask me who that source is, but it's a source. I won't reveal it, but
I'll take it.
So might be the one I totally made up, but
so Tomlin pretty upset about that. And again,
I like this Mac. I like this Mac team. Is that? I hope I didn't like steal one of your other ones, like where he said, "Oh, we don't play like Mac teams or something like that." I forget they were playing somebody that wasn't that good. There's no Mac teams on the schedule.
Yeah, there's a few times where, like I said, Tomlin has got kind of gone off script, but
it was funny, rare. Like Robert Spillane and like Ben Roethlisberger and like I think there was a couple other guys like Deontay Johnson and like they were all like mad. They're like, "Hey, we played in the Mac," and like, which they did a great photo. They did like Tomlin with those guys and like the runway, like his Mac guys. So that was fun. I think that one was just more fun and. That was definitely angry. Mike Tomlin.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back to hockey. In 1989, the Penguins are playing the Flyers in the second round of the playoffs. The series is tied 2-2, and in Game 5, Mario Lemieux does what Mario Lemieux often did back then. He has a hat trick 7 minutes into the game, midway through the second period, the Penguins are actually winning 8-3 over the hated Flyers. And it's at that point that right winger Rob Brown for the Penguins, he gets a goal past goaltender Ron Hextall and starts into his little windmill celebration that he used to do, but doesn't get very far because Ron Hextall decides that he's had enough of being burnt by the Penguins that night, and he starts chasing Brown around the ice with his stick. Hextall's thrown out of the game, of course, and actually replaced by future Penguin Kenny Reggett, who we mentioned earlier. And Reggett actually ends up winning that series for the Flyers. But just out of all the meltdowns, Steve, Ron Hextall, like, chasing, and if he would have caught him, I'm pretty sure he would have killed him. Like, I have no doubt that Ron Hextall was on a murder bender there. He just wanted to kill Robbie Brown at that moment for scoring a goal. For
Well, I
literally
think
for
it's more
scoring a
the
goal.
celebration. He just got sick of. I mean,
Yeah, Ron Hextall.
where's that Ron Hextall as GM? We need that guy.
Yeah,
Have a little fire, man. Oh.
Yeah, Ron Hextall, of course, now is the general manager of the team, and it is what it is. But
Maybe-
1989, right? Ron Hextall.
Maybe you need to
wanted blood.
chase like Sidney Crosby or somebody around the table or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen that anything like that since, like during a game where somebody was that obsessed with hurting somebody. Maybe like Vontez Perfect in that playoff game, but other than that, just yeah, that was quite the meltdown. Let's go back to baseball for our next one. In August of 2022, the Pirates are hosting the Boston Red Sox. There's Boston again, Steve. It's a team,
Well,
obviously.
it's that plucky little team from Boston with its top 5 payroll. Yeah.
The Red Sox, obviously a team that the Pirates don't play very often. In fact, it had been almost a full decade since the Red Sox last came to Pittsburgh. So the Boston announcers, they don't really know a whole ton about the Pirates. Why would they, right? Not like they have to do a lot of research on the Pirates normally. And during the game, Red Sox announcer Dennis Eckersley, who you may remember was a really great closer back in the day for the Oakland Athletics, he's pretty shocked and disgusted by what Bob Nutting has put on the field and called a Major League Baseball team. And he proceeds to go on this rant.
You talk about a no-name lineup. There's no team like this. You know, just came from Kansas City, seeing all those young kids. This is different, though. Doesn't it seem different? Did they have a lot of prospects they're playing over there?
And serious prospects.
Yes.
The guys who are going to be in the big leagues.
This is a hodgepodge of nothingness.
A hodgepodge of nothingness.
A great name for a podcast. The hodgepodge of nothingness podcast.
I did see people like made t-shirts of that and everything else. I mean, it's he goes on that rant, but I thought it was completely well said and accurate and said by a guy who knows a thing or two about winning, and Dennis Eckersley. So good for somebody outside of Pittsburgh calling out the total nonsense that is this team and its ownership and fielding just garbage year after year after year.
You know what I think it is? I think it's now, I mean, you have a sibling or family member, like, you know, that family member may be what they are, right? But if somebody outside the family points out the truth, you get mad at that person more than, you know, I think it's like, yeah, our team might be garbage, but there are garbage kind of going on. And it's hard to disagree with anything that was said. I mean, I guess you could say that shortstop might be good. And, you know, they have some guys that might be good, but all the rest of that team was pretty, not so much.
Yeah.
Especially the pitching staff. I mean, you know, if he was looking at the pitching staff, he was dead on. It was just, there was just nothing there. There just was nothing there. So.
And it's like they kind of alluded to. It's not nothing because, well, we're in a rebuild and we have a lot of young players. It's just
it was like
cycle
older.
of nothing.
Yeah, it was older players who, like the one guy who, like that Bryce. They already got rid of him this last off season. So, and he wasn't even that good to begin with. So it is what it is.
Yeah, good for Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it isn't. No, don't make fun of my team. I don't know.
Well, I think most Pirate fans were in agreement with that. I mean, the only people I saw really getting upset about it were like the people that were employed by the Pirates, like Greg Brown
Yeah.
and like some of the management, which of course they have to say that, so you can't fault them for that. But I think most Pirate fans are like, yeah, you're right.
And your point is?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes rants and meltdowns don't always occur in front of a camera. Sometimes they can occur over social media. And I would say that one organization, Steve, that's demonstrated time and time again that they probably need some coaching or training on how to properly use social media is the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's just a long list of things we could point to over the years, whether it's Rashard Mendenhall's views on Osama bin Laden, or Juju Smith-Schuster's logo dancing, or Antonio Brown live streaming his own locker room after a playoff win. But then there was also Devin Bush, a guy who isn't exactly Mr. Popular with the fans after the Steelers traded up to get him in the draft and then watched him mostly not live up to expectations. In July of 2021, Bush goes on a pretty bizarre Twitter bender. First, he tweets, quote, "If you're a grown man and you got TikTok on your phone, stay the F away from me." And that's a kind of a peculiar statement to make, given that many of his teammates are on TikTok, including teammates Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool,
Well, I
who
guess he doesn't want to
actually-
be around them then.
who actually like are pretty well-known TikTok personalities and make money off of that and everything. That tweet draws a yikes response from Claypool, and JJ Watt, the future Hall of Fame linebacker, says, "You're going to need to build your own locker room over there, bro." Bush then blames people for misreading what he said and said, I love my teammates and blah, 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 right? So he's not done. After that, he tweets out a disturbing video of a cat following several stories, presumably to its death. And when people react negatively to that, Bush again blames the people that reacted. And then he tweets, quote, "You all got me in trouble." And then he has another tweet saying he's only allowed now 2 tweets per day, although he doesn't specify who supposedly placed this limit on him. And then the next day,
told him, said, "You're grounded from Twitter."
I don't know, but the
Devin,
next day,
you're grounded.
the next day, he actually sends out 9 tweets, and then he says, quote, "I went over my limit."
He's going to be in
today."
trouble. He's going to be in trouble with mom.
Yeah, he says, quote, "I went over my limit today. Them boys sent me a fine."
What
Okay.
does that even mean?
Yeah,
So
that's
the Steelers fined him for sending more than 2 tweets.
that would be like public league information. So no. Again, it's like Devin Bush was obviously in some parallel universe that we didn't know about. I don't know. But yeah, Devin Bush,
where he was a competent middle linebacker. He was really good his first year, and then he got that ACL injury, and he's just never been the same since. It's like, because I remember being really upset when he got hurt, because like, oh, this guy's really playing well, and then he got hurt, and I was like, oh, this stinks. And yeah, he's just been absolute not good since. So
yeah, he's not going to be a Steeler next year, and
I would hope so. I would hope not.
What's the over under on like number of years before he's out of the league altogether? I say 2.
Oh, 1 at the. I doubt.
You think 1? Yeah.
I think he'll be lucky to make a team next year.
He'll make some team. Somebody will give him a second chance, and then he'll stink for them, and then he'll just be out of the league altogether, which is a shame.
I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what happened. It's just another really bad wasted draft pick. And it's like this year, ever since Ryan Shazier got hurt, they really have not replaced that position with anything the level they need it. And it's a shame, because if they had that, their defense would be really good. It's like that position, those linebackers have to make all the plays, and they just don't. And nothing against Spillane's a special teamer filling guy at best. You need a stud there. Like, look at what look at Baltimore did with Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. I mean, that's what they need at linebacker.
Yep. You're absolutely
well, we'll
right.
see what happens.
So we talked about coaches. I think probably the most insane group of coaches, Steve, are college basketball coaches. Like, I don't think you can be a mentally stable person and take the job of college basketball head coach. Would you agree? I mean, we talked about like those old school NFL coaches, but man, college basketball.
Jeff Capel seems pretty. I don't know. Krzyzewski wasn't bad. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you definitely have your outliers.
Yeah, well, it's telling when you have to point out like the exceptions, right? So
That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Jamie
So
Dixon. I mean, there's your third one. Jamie Dixon was a good person. Is a good person. No way, not
yeah, and Keith Dambrot, the coach of Duquesne, is typically a guy that keeps his cool as well. However, that wasn't the case in a 2018 game where Duquesne is playing Penn State. At the end of that game, it's tied with 5 seconds left. Penn State has the ball, and they drive for the potential game-winning shot, but they miss. However, the refs call a blocking foul on Duquesne, and it's definitely a questionable call, right? There were 5 seconds left. They missed the shot. But they call blocking.
Was that in Pittsburgh or was that in State College? Probably State College.
I don't have that. I don't remember. But regardless, it's a questionable call. Penn State's going to shoot 2 free throws, but the Dukes still have a chance to tie the game or even win it with a 3-pointer because there's still 5 seconds left. Or will they? Duquesne head coach Keith Dambrot loses it over the call. He gets whistled for a technical.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And he really goes off to the point where he literally has to be physically restrained by his own players. He gets called for another technical and ejected from the game. So now instead of 2 free throws, Penn State gets to shoot 6 free throws. They make them all, and that's the end of the game. So it's one of those things where certainly he was probably right to be upset about the call, but then it's like you got to move on and give your team at least a chance there too to tie the game or even, like I said, even win it. And when you just lose it and get called for more technicals, then that's not going to help. So, and I like Keith Dambrot. I think he's done a good job with Duquesne. But that was one time where he just was not at his best, obviously.
Yeah, that'll do you.
Another guy that was, how do we say this, passionate, was Jim Leland, the manager of the Pirates. In 1991, the Pirates are at spring training, and Barry Bonds is angry about his contract. Barry Bonds was the reigning NL MVP at that point. He feels like he should be paid more money, and he's probably right, to be fair. But Barry Bonds was never the kind of guy that handled things like that well. He's usually just ticked off at the world in general. And when he has something specific to be angry about, like a contract, he's even more intolerable. And one morning, he just takes out his frustration on everyone down there at spring training. He actually screams at a press photographer who's taking pictures. Like, you're a pro athlete, literally in the act of playing the sport you get paid for, and you're upset that someone's taking pictures. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. He also gets into it with Bill Verdon, the Pirate legend who's the hitting coach in 1991. And Leland's the manager, and Leland's not a guy that tolerates fools, right?
Yeah.
And he comes over, he starts screaming at Barry Bonds. He tells him basically, I'm the manager of this team. And if you don't want to be here, sir, then kindly leave. He doesn't quite say it like that.
Yeah, he said it exactly like that. Sir, if you kindly remove yourself from the premises, I'll be happy.
If you're not going to behave with the decorum that we expect from this baseball club, then I kindly ask you to exit the premises.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of F-bombs sprinkled in there. I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I actually thought about playing that clip, and it's pointless because literally all you hear is like, I'm the beep, 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 beep. I mean, you just, every other word is bleeped out. So I will post the link if you want to watch that. But it's all captured on camera. It's actually a TV station from Altoona that was down there to do a story about spring training. They get all that on camera. And the clip really goes viral for whatever viral counted for in 1991. Because it's like, it's on all the evening newscasts on Sports Center, all that stuff. And to his credit, Barry Bonds does say years later that Leland was right to get on him for doing that. I think Barry Bonds has kind of mellowed out a little bit in recent years. And
I think Barry Bonds respected him for that. Like sometimes a guy like that, you gotta rattle the cage a little bit. And,
Yep.
He loves Jim Leland to this day still. So
yeah. So, I mean, Barry Bonds admitting that he was wrong and another person was right is pretty big moment for Barry Bonds. So kudos to him for doing that.
Personal growth. Look at that. Look at Barry.
That's right. How about we were talking about, F-bombs and bleeped out F-bombs. How about when you can't bleep them out because they're on live TV? Let's talk
That's
about
my favorite kind of F-bomb. Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about some Pittsburgh stars dropping some 4-letter words on the National Broadcasting Company. In 1995, the Steelers win the AFC Championship game in an absolute thriller over the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh,
we did an episode on that season, on that game. Certainly one for the ages. And after the game, Steelers linebacker Greg Lloyd, he's holding the Lamar Hunt Trophy, which is what they give you if you win the AFC Championship game. And he makes a nice little speech about, how hard the Steelers worked to get to that point. And then he says this as he is about to hand the trophy over to Dan Rooney. He says, "This thing belongs to Mr. Rooney, and let's see if we can bring this thing back here next year, along with the effing Super Bowl on live television." And NBC's Jim Gray, who's the one holding the microphone, he's just like, "Oh, it was a family program until that point." What can he really do at that point? Greg Lloyd never really shy or afraid to offend anybody. So that generates some controversy. Not to be outdone, 9 years later, Pitt quarterback Tyler Palko has a memorable performance in South Bend. He throws 5 touchdown passes. He beats Notre Dame on a last-second field goal. He's being interviewed by NBC after the game, and he says this.
"I don't really care about stats right now. All I care about is we got the win, and that's my teammates know that. For me, that's a bottom line. I don't care if I do for 3 yards. We got to win. We needed this win so badly over the great Notre Dame team. I'm so proud of our football team. Man, we're awesome."
All right, we apologize for Tyler Palko's language in the heat of the moment. After the brilliant game he had, too bad it was marred by that moment.
Too bad it was marred. Tyler Palko, folks, I mean, shouldn't even be alive anymore. I mean, how dare he swear at Notre Dame? His whole reputation's down the drain. They should just strip him of his eligibility to play college football. Oh, the horror.
Well, it was like that with Jim Gray too. I remember everybody didn't like Jim Gray, and like Jim Gray is so annoyingly unsufferable. He's like Tom Brady's like official mouthpiece in the media, and he's the idiot that asked Pete. They're like celebrating Ted Williams.
Yeah, Pete Rose.
And it's like, "Oh, Pete Rose, did you bet on baseball?" Like, if you want to do a sit down interview and ask Pete Rose that, go for it, Jim. Congratulations. Maybe you'll get an answer. Maybe you won't. But to ask him there, it was like, come on, Jim, that's just stupid. It's like, this is not the time nor the place. And like, I remember Greg Lloyd said before that, turn off the cameras or something like that. Or I think,
so he planned it.
Yeah, I thought there was something to that where he said, "Oh, turn off the cameras, I'm going to swear," or something like that. And yeah, and that's just Jim Gray being, Jim Gray, I guess.
Yeah.
And as for, Tom Hannon, it's, I don't know why you're like, oops, it's just heated. Like, if he just was like, "Oh, Tyler Palko in the heat of the moment," I think he just would have been fine. And just like, "Oh, people say stuff in the heat of the moment. He's excited." But then they're like, "Oh, he sullied his moment." It's like, come on. That's a little over the top. But just to say, "Oh, in the heat of the moment, people get passionate."
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think if he would have left it at that, I would have been it got a little bit too much. The clutching of pearls, like, "Oh
right.
my gosh,
right.
Oh, he said a bad word."
Right. So Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh players and NBC, not necessarily a good mix over the years. So that's really our list. I had a few other ones that I was going to put on here, but they were ones that we like really covered in detail on previous episodes. So I was gonna talk about Buddy Parker trying to cut the entire team. I mean, Buddy Parker had like 18 meltdowns that we could have talked about, and we did talk about in an episode we did a while back. So go check that out. I kind of alluded to the Bengals in Vontez Perfect and Pac-Man Jones, and that playoff game. Again, we covered that pretty heavily in another
Gary
episode.
Porter was heavily involved in that.
Right. And then we've covered it now at least 2 or 3 times. So I couldn't do it again, but Michelle Therrien with that, they're soft, and I think their goal is to be the worst defense unit ever. Just absolutely legendary. So again, go check out those other episodes. We'll link to them if you want to check those out. Steve, any memorable rants or meltdowns that I forgot about that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head, but all I gotta say is I really love this effing podcast. Me and Tim are the best. I don't care about stats or downloads. We're just out here up against the great Notre Dame team, and I really love this. Maybe, remember the T-shirts? Remember they had T-shirts like the next week? I love this effing team. Like
I remember that.
Yeah, I wonder if we can find one.
And folks, thanks for listening. That was a good podcast. It's a shame Steve had to mar it with his his awful language there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody so much for listening. You can always check us out on the web or on Facebook or on Twitter or even on YouTube. You can obviously lost my train of thought. You can also check us out on whatever service you download your podcast from. Please give us a rating or tell your friends, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.